Hey, my name's Bonnie, streaming from Awabakal and Warramai Land, and this is The Good Stuff on Newcastle Live.
This is
Good.
good stuff.
The Good Stuff! Welcome back to The Good Stuff. Coming up on the show today, we'll be joined by local muso and record store owner Ben Leece. We'll help you find the perfect event for Mother's Day, and Dan will tell us how to get tickets to see John Cleese in Newcastle later this year. But first, let's find out what's happening tonight around Newcastle and the Hunter.
From tonight's gig and event guide, Dead Mall and Spat Out will hit the stage at the Hamilton Station Hotel. Phoenix Pritchard and David McMichael are hosting Sing It at Sawyer's, an open mic event. It's trivia at the Green Roof. And the decks are open at the Lasagari tonight for DJs and producers to show off their mad skills. But that's only some of the great stuff happening around the Hunter tonight. For more information, head to newcastlelive.com.au.
Newcastle Live. Newcastle Live.
Each year, Mother's Day swings around, and if you're like me, it catches you completely off guard. Thankfully, we've curated a guide on the website to make sure that you don't rock up to morning tea empty-handed. Our Mother's Day guide covers everything, including markets, live music, social arts classes, champagne brunches, and so much more. To start planning, head to newcastlelive.com.au or check us out on Facebook to see what everyone's talking about. Coming up next, we'll pop into our chat with Ben Leece.
This is
Good stuff. Local singer-songwriter Ben Leece has just released a brand new single under his band moniker Ben Leece and Left of the Dial. The single Big Red Black has been compared to songs like Ohio by Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young and Midnight Oil's Beds Are Burning, and was given a good working over in a killer set at the Gumball Festival. So it's my absolute pleasure to welcome to The Good Stuff, Ben Leece.
G'day, Bonnie. How are you?
So good. Thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
So I've seen you play countless times, and every time I feel a really humble presence from you on stage, and I always leave thinking about some sort of lyric that was dropped during your set. So how did you first get into music?
It's been forever. I guess my family, my parents loved music. My dad played music. I had an uncle that played music, and I had another uncle that was really into music that shared a lot of stuff with me, and it's just always felt like a natural part. Like I just can't imagine not being with music somewhere.
Yeah. Can you remember some of the first artists that you were inspired by or had a good time listening to?
Yeah, from my parents' collection, it was the Police and Queen, Dire Straits, Linda Ronstadt, Motown sort of stuff, yeah.
And you're a deep lover of hip-hop now, right? How did you make that transition?
I was sort of a big fan of hip-hop before I started playing music, really, but I remember as a kid, so I'm in my 40s now, so I sort of started listening late 80s, early 90s, I guess. And it always seemed a little bit toy because there was a singles. I also grew up on a farm, so I didn't have this immediate access to a lot of music. Relied heavily on Rage, and a lot of the rap that was coming through in the top 40 or whatever that you'd see was like MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice, and it was all a little bit toy, and I never really... It was cool, but I never really did it. But in the early 90s when Triple J did their regional rollout, so I was close to Tamworth, and it was some sort of test signalling, and they were just playing whole albums. So it must have been 93 or 94. They were doing, playing whole albums back to front with little, call signals in between, and I just got in the habit of getting home and, you had the cassette in the tape player ready to record. And it was stuff like Primal Scream and just heaps of different stuff, those early 90s big records. And I came home from somewhere one night, and just as Public Enemy, and I didn't know what it was at the time, but it was Public Enemy's Fear of a Black Planet album was playing just before Welcome to the Terror Dome, and the production, later found out it's Bomb Squad production. It just sounded, I was really into thrash metal and hair metal and stuff like that at the time. Poison and Slayer and Metallica and Warrant and that sort of stuff. And the production on the Public Enemy stuff was hard. Like, it sounded like metal to me somehow.
Yeah.
And I just walked into the room. I'm like, what is this? This is amazing. And yeah, that was it. So from there, it just became such a big thing. And it was probably the first time that political, social conscious messages started to click too, with Chuck D's lyrics and things like that. So yeah, that's a big part of where I'm at today, for sure.
Yeah. So what kind of role do you think lyrics play in social change?
Well, I mean, obviously I guess I'm biased in that, but I think, Revolution has always had a soundtrack, in recent years or in the last 100 years, Bob Dylan, Sam Cooke, artists like these are synonymous with, with anti-war, Neil Young, talking about the environment back in the 60s and 70s, and I think it's a great motivator because they're kind of like Trojan horses, you know what I mean? Like, it's a catchy song, you can feel the emotion in it, and then you sort of break down those walls to people that otherwise wouldn't care, I think. And it's definitely been my experience I've definitely had people come up to me.
So, Big Red Black, obviously it has some fantastic lines in it, including White Tongue, Don't Tell Black History, and also, hey, I got news for you, the system ain't broken, it does what it's supposed to do. Yep. Tell us about the inspiration behind this song.
Well, the White Tongue, Don't Tell Black History, that was Jules Crichton.
Yeah.
And, that's just, that's what she does, But I had a conversation with a friend of mine that I grew up with probably 2 years ago now. It was maybe just as COVID was kicking off. And he was doing some research into some, local massacres that took place around where I grew up, on the Baramble Plain, which is the farm where I grew up, sat in that area. And I'd spent and this has happened a few times, this realisation that all these things have happened so close to where I've spent so much of my life and I've never known anything about it. Yeah, so he was piecing together some theories and some evidence that suggested there was some big massacres or a big massacre that took place on that country, and the story behind it was that it was a free settler who'd been awarded land, arrived, met with the locals, all of a sudden had blood on his hands. Mm-hmm. And a few years later, because the country's so good, so where I grew up on that, northwest New South Wales, it's really good farming country, rich black soil. So yeah, it was decided that the land was too good for him and was taken back by the Australian Agricultural Commission. Australian Agricultural Company. And I just thought that was funny that we would, as white people, we would toe the line and do all that we need to do, or all that's asked for us, including killing, and yet still have all that taken away from you and be left with nothing. Mm. So yeah, I guess that's where the song came from. Yeah.
Yeah. So as you just mentioned, you collaborated on this track with Julianne Crichton, William Crichton, and Liz Stringer. What kind of impact did they have on the final sound? And can you tell us about the story of where that White Tongue, Don't Tell Black History came from?
So when I first wrote it, Crichton and I were hanging out a lot, and we've only become sort of friends in the last 4 or 5 years, or close friends in the last 4 or 5 years. And that was probably, a big part of that was COVID. Just being close to each other and not being able to spread out too much. But as soon as I wrote it, I'm like, I could hear Jules and Crido on it. So I knew from the start that I wanted them to be a part of it. It didn't necessarily sound like it did the finished product, but the bones of the song, I just always knew that I wanted them to be a part of it. And I didn't know, I loved Liz's music, but I'd never met her. Mm-hmm. And then after seeing her perform at Dashville at Skyline last year, I'm just like, oh man, I can just hear her in this as well. I wonder if she'd sing on the song.
Yeah, crazy.
And then, so through last year, we became closer, lots of mutual friends. She agreed, and then with Will and Jules, Will was in hospital. He had an infected foot. He'd stepped on a sea urchin. And I'd been up to visit him in hospital, and we were just talking about what we were up to, and I said, I've got some mixes back for this song. And he's like, give me a listen. And it's so funny. He just needed to get out of the hospital. He's going stir crazy. Anyone that knows William will know that he doesn't do well sitting still for too long. Mm-hmm. We went for a walk, and we're walking in the rain listening to this, he's on crutches in his hospital gown. And we sort of got our heads sort of leaning up against each other, listening to this song. And you could just see his brain ticking over, like he was obviously into it. And he's like, leave it with me. And I picked him up the next day and took him home, and we were going to there was a corroboree on Ewan country down in Nowra on the south coast that we were invited to watch and witness. And it was just such an inspiring to see. I'd never seen anything like that before in my life. Just the dancing and the song, and you could just feel the spiritual energy, and it just felt like such a privilege to be there and be able to witness that and take some of that energy. And we were in the bus on the way home, and it was myself, Will, Jack, Will and Jules' son, and Tara, my partner, and we're just riffing on this song the whole way home, just really excited about it. Got home, and they have a studio set up in their backyard in the caravan, and we'd set up the session, and we were just like recording some like melody ideas, and Will had come up with this idea for a melody, but we didn't have the line. And so Jules came down, Jack on a hip, what are you doing? And he's like, we need this line. Do you have any ideas? And she's like, you see her brain ticking away, and she disappeared for 10 minutes and came back, and Jack's still on a hip. What about White Tongue Don't Tell Black History? And we just looked at each other and like, oh, fuck, that's it.
Crazy.
So, we recorded it then and there, and that was it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
This is the first time that you've released under Ben Leece and Left of the Dial. Where did this name come from, and what kind of importance does it have to you to include the band on this?
Well, Left of the Dial is the name of a Replacements song. Replacements are my favourite band. I'm pretty vocal about that. I like the alliteration with Leece and Left. Yeah. And I guess it was never a really serious name, but I guess it just stuck over the last couple of years. When I recorded the first album, I was just recording a bunch of songs that I'd written, and it got produced how it was produced, and I wasn't really thinking too hard about the interpretation when we're doing it live or whatever. But since that first album came out and we started touring it, and I had to put a band together, they just, like Matt and Liam, it started, Matt's the drummer, Matt Taylor, and Liam Ferguson, bass player. They were the core, and they've just been so loyal and so good and so giving. It's one thing to be, because I've played in bands my whole life, and always sort of taken on a, somewhat of a lead role in terms of business or just making stuff happen or whatever. But it's always been a democracy. And it's a different dynamic when it's your name on the marquee, but you still want your guys to be invested in it, you know. But you know, obviously no one's going to be invested in it like you are. So I'm just so thankful for these guys for, you know, believing in me and backing me and supporting me. And they you can hear that song, you know, Matt's drumming in that in particularly, like it makes it what it is. And I just really wanted to credit them this time.
Yeah.
And the other part of that was just separating it from where I'd been. I never really meant to end up in this country thing, but I just when I really got into songwriting, that style of writing, I guess, just lent itself to country music.
Yeah. Are you making a solid attempt to get away from that?
I definitely wanted to make a distinction, for sure. And I'm not saying I won't make, you know, country records again, but I just wanted to do this. And it seems like it's been a bit of a shock to other people, but you know, I'm a punk rock kid that loves hip hop, and that's been me my whole life. So I think, you know, Ben Leece and Left of the Dial and these next songs are probably more me than anything I've put out under my own name.
Yeah,
so,
wow.
Yeah.
So Big Red Black is the first of a collection, right?
Yeah, the first single of a new album, yeah.
Wow. Can you tell us about the album?
So the album was... This is the third attempt to make this record, and there's a few different reasons for that, but we started January 2022, and then just, through geography and schedules and different things, it's sort of taken this long to get it all out. And there's still some finishing touches to do on a few songs, and but hopefully be out later this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Ben, before I let you go, we do need to talk a little bit about Rudderless.
Sure.
Rudderless Records. So what's coming up for you at the moment?
World domination. No.
Yes.
No, it's just I've worked hard my whole life, and I'm in a position where I get to sell records Monday to Friday and play music on the weekend. So I sort of manifested this pretty sweet life. So I'm going to try and maintain that as long as I can. It's lots of hard work, but yeah, things are going good. It's all going well. In terms of the future, we'll be doing like more events, you know, a few little surprises and collaborations coming up. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, Ben, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. It's been awesome to chat.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Good stuff.
Comedy legend John Cleese has announced he'll bring his live show to Newcastle in August. As a founding member of Monty Python, Cleese is responsible for some of the most iconic films and television comedies in history. The show promises to be an unforgettable night of storytelling and anecdotes. Pre-sale tickets are available now, with general on sale kicking off on Monday the 15th of May at 9 a.m. To find out more, head to newcastlelive.com.au.
Good stuff.
That's it for the good stuff today. We'd love to say a big thank you to Ben Leece. Be sure to head into Rudderless Records on Parry Street to say hey, and check him out on the socials at Ben Leece Music. Coming up tomorrow, we'll be joined by HIA's Executive Director, Craig Jenian, to talk about the building and renovation show. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for more of the good stuff.